All right. G'day, everyone. I'm Joshua McLeod, and today I'm located along the mighty Durrubban, otherwise known as the Hawkesbury River. It's an absolute pleasure today to be able to give an acknowledgement of country from my country, the country of the Darug Nation and the Burrubarongul clan. So without further ado, I'd like to deliver my acknowledgement. Bioa Budjari Darug Yuriam. I speak well of the Darug people and all people joining us today. Naya Yirabarang G. Nurian, the people who belong to this country. Biowa Gulbanga, Gurani Gang, Yora, Gurugu Yagu, Barabagugu, Yora Darag And I pay respect to elders past and present and other First Nations people in the room today. Yanmawa Gulbanga, Darig Yora, Budjari, Gamadara, Nurub Barigu. I walk with and respect Darug people and all people in good spirit towards lateral love. Didgeridoo. Thank you all. Now today I'm joined by Melanie Grills, and we're going to have a bit of a yarning session and go through a few questions around STEM pathways for First Nations people, the experiences, and encourage them to getting through into a STEM career from high school, and also what a career looks like when you're in the workforce. Melanie, I'd like to invite you now to introduce yourself to everyone joining in today.
Thanks, Josh. Yama, everyone. My name is Melanie Grills, and I'm a Gomeroi woman from Moree, New South Wales. I am currently Brisbane-based, and so as we start, I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this place, Meanjin, the Turrbal and Yagara people. And as we share knowledge and experiences today, I'd also acknowledge and pay respects to knowledge and cultural practices embedded for all time with Turrbal and Yagara ownership of country. And I extend that acknowledgement to the custodians of the areas where everyone's joining from today. So I'm currently the First Nations projects lead at Arup. And so that's a new role for me. I'm about 7 weeks into my role, but really looking forward to the yarn today, Josh.
Awesome. Thank you for that. As we'd like to move on to some questions. So thank you again for everyone in the session at the start, in your sign up phase for sending through your questions. We've collated a bunch of questions that we're going to be able to go through today. There's also an opportunity to send through some questions in the chat. We may or may not get time to look at them, so thank you for sending them all in, as we appreciate it. But yeah, I guess to kick it off, straight into the first question of this session. So could you share with us all a bit more about your current role and a moment that you've loved about your work in this past year?
Yeah, sure. My role is actually a brand new role at Arup. Basically my role is to support opportunities that help maximise benefits to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, particularly when it comes to approaches in engineering design that centre country. So I think I'll probably refer more to a collective moment, Josh, that I've loved about my work in the past year, just because I am so new to Arup, but I have been doing this work for a little while in the industry. And I think what I've loved more broadly is watching the evolution of how country is starting to be valued in the industry and the profession. So this is a result of years of First Nations experts and collaborators, and it's really exciting for me to be able to sort of come in and further facilitate those really healthy approaches, I suppose, to how connection to country is achieved in our profession.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can work through as well. I might go through and share, my own 2 cents on some of these Q&A questions as well. So as mentioned in the introduction, I am a Darug Burrubarongul man, and beautiful today this weather. It's, 18 degrees and sunny, perfect conditions out here, which is awesome. And my role before I joined Engineers Without Borders was an electrical engineer. I worked in various projects across Australia and the Southeast Asia Pacific region, which has been, it was an amazing journey as I went through that. But I've now got, quite an awesome new role in being able to develop programs that we can help work with directly First Nations youth. We have exciting new programs coming up. I'll be able to talk a little bit more on them as later on as well. But we're doing some excellent programs in the First Nation space, and I always encourage everyone who's listening, or if you know nieces, nephews, anyone who's young and looking to get into a career, get into a STEM career. It's an awesome way to live your life in this job. So moving on to the next questions here, we have for you, Melanie, when was it in your life that you knew that you wanted your career in STEM?
Well, for me, Josh, it was probably more of a happy accident. So I'm probably more the product of a happy accident, sort of falling into to STEM. But I mean, I did complete my first undergraduate degree by way of a Bachelor of Science, but that was with a psych major, so probably not a traditional STEM stream as such. But what has kept me interested in engineering since starting is the spectrum of things a person can be contributing to by being part of the engineering community. I mean, it just blows my mind. So coming from a non-technical background, I honestly had no idea of the scope of, engineering particularly. And I probably had a very defined view of what engineers did, probably a pretty naive view. When I looked at that, I thought, that probably doesn't really tickle my fancy, having this really quite sheltered view. But yeah, I still get my mind blown almost on the daily by the type of work that we're involved in and global problems that we're part of solving. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's incredible the work we all get to do in this field. And, again, I encourage everyone to jump on board. I'd like to acknowledge Brodie Mitchell. Thank you for joining and jumping on today. Perfect time to jump in.
Sorry for being late.
No worries at all. Let's catch everyone up. Let's bit of an introduction about yourself, Brodie, if you'd like.
My name is Brodie Mitchell. I'm a Wadi man from New South Wales, currently in my third year of studying a Bachelor of Civil Engineering. I'm working through a cadetship at Wollongong City Council. I suppose in my free time, I like mountain biking, working towards my pilot license, which I'm really excited for. And yeah, that's the main things about me, I suppose.
That's incredible. So going through, we went through a couple questions, but we can quickly bring it back. So we want to capture what is a moment about your work in the last year that you've absolutely loved?
In the last year, working at Wollongong City Council, I've absolutely loved being able to develop my skills as an engineer. I rotate between teams throughout my degree, and my most recent one was in civil design, and that's where I was actually able to see a physical change in my community, helping out with projects like footpaths, designing bus stops, analysing flood levels. That's been the real highlight so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is that rotating of roles, is that something embedded within your organization and your company that they kind of make you do, or is that something you express that you would like to be able to do?
It's a part of my cadetship. So I think there are other cadetships that council offers that are more just in one team, but with the civil engineering, and I think the other top kind of engineers at council, they like to rotate them, getting them out onto site in surveying teams, out on the works crews, but also in the designing stage as well. Just to have a real a holistic view.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's incredible for all young undergrads and graduates to have that opportunity to get a feel for the environment when you're in the workplace. And then moving on to looking at when kind of was that moment you switched to being like, I want this career, I want to be an engineer. When did that happen for you?
Yeah, well, that's a very easy question for me to answer. That would have been when I attended Engineering Aid Australia's summer and winter camps back in year 10. I suppose I had an interest in engineering back then, but not really knowing what it was, just interested in maths and science. And my careers advisor said, you should go on this camp. So I went and got exposed to the whole world of engineering, the complete diversity of it, the different technical aspects and fields. And I fell in love with it from there. And I just kept going to more camps, doing work placements. But that was the turning point in my life, that engineering was for me.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's great to know that there's so many programs out there that do make a difference. And you know, that they are that spark that really got you on this path today. So moving on, so for Melanie, how did you get to where you are today? What was your career kind of journey to get to doing this, you know, amazing job that you're now doing?
Well, it's been a bit all over the shop, to be honest, Josh, but that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that, is there? You know, it's not always a straight line or linear. So, yeah, I sort of went to university and did a couple of degrees and sort of got to the end of both of those and wasn't entirely convinced that that perhaps that they were the right professions for me to pursue. And I suppose all the while I had been I'd been working, you know, while I was sort of, you know, going through university and all that kind of thing. But I did end up in a role with the Queensland government that was working in native title, and that was a real eye opener for me, and probably sparked a passion in me. Where I feel I got lucky in terms of discovering that passion quite early, and then really not wanting to settle for anything else that took me away from that passion. So and really wanted to pursue that in terms of helping better outcomes for mob in whatever that setting sort of kind of looked like. So look, I've just always been really motivated to make a difference. So I've worked hard to find environments where that can be embraced. And I also, I can't discount the way that university helped me become quite disciplined and organised in the way I approach tasks and all that kind of thing. I think that's helped me. But mostly it's been trying to be courageous and challenge status quos. But I work hard to make sure that I do it in a way that sort of galvanizes people and brings people together, which can be very testing and trying at times. It's not always easy, but sort of getting to the other side of that and seeing all people, you know, First Nations and non-First Nations people share in success in better outcomes for mob, and seeing them feel uplifted by that, that makes it all worth it. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so same question for you, Brady. So how did you get to, you know, your role in council, and what was that kind of journey like going through, you know, as acknowledging your third year uni? What's it been like for you as well so far?
Well, the role for me getting into council is quite a long one. Many stepping stones along the way. I guess it started back in high school with those camps, like I mentioned in the previous question, and I was able to use my experience in those camps to get a internship over the school break between the end of high school and start of uni. I stayed there for 6 months. That was at Arcadis up in Sydney. So I had to catch the train up and back each day. And then I did another internship with SMEC. That was only for a month, I believe. And then I was able to use all of this culminative experience, which I wouldn't have had if it wasn't for like Indigenous programs catered to getting more Indigenous people into engineering. I wouldn't have been able to get this position at council because it was competitive.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I can do a bit of reflection on this as well. So I guess a bit about my journey. I, like Brody, attended a camp and a number of camps and different programs throughout my schooling. And, you know, I guess had the pleasure of house parent and mentoring Brody on some of those programs myself. But, you know, I started, you know, I went to a few of them, and when I went on them, I wasn't sure if engineering was for me yet either. But the experiences that you gain, and I remember we got to go to some sites. So for those calling in from Sydney, back when I got to go in there, I went to look at Barangaroo towers before they were towers, when they were just holes in the ground, and I first did the digs. So I got to go look at all of that and all the civil works around that, as well as talking about all the awesome tech, you know, that mechanical, mechatronics, and electrical engineers work on. And that's kind of when I went down that path of electrical engineering. Now, I didn't get in directly into uni first glance off of just ATAR. I went in through alternative pathways that the University of Wollongong had, or still do have, and that's how I got myself into engineering. It was an interesting arrangement at first for me, because the agreement of me getting in was that I had to have a tutor. And they made it seem like a requirement, like as a negative thing, like you had to have done this, achieve this to do that. But I was thinking, that's incredible. Like, I have to get support. I love to get support. I'm going to take all the support I can get, and do as much tutoring and stuff to get me through this degree. So I did, and was fortunate enough at the same time to reach out to an engineering firm based in Sydney, WSP, and get a kind of internship, which I carried on throughout my entirety of my degree, and then went on to doing undergrad and postgrad work with them as well. So, you know, the journey, you don't have to get in straight off ATAR. You don't even have to get in through university. You know, there's an immense amount of pathways into an engineering role. You know, TAFE offers some incredible programs that can either set you up to go into university or give you the skills to get straight into the field then and there. So yeah, it's a pretty incredible way, and there's, you know, a massive amount of pathways all the youth can use to achieve to get into these type of jobs. So let's go on to a bit of the challenges we've all kind of got through. We're all here now. Brody's, you know, reaching the end of his degree, and that we're kind of here. We're in the field. We're in these corporate companies, and we're working. But what were some of the challenges that you both faced on your way? I might go to Brody first. So what was kind of some challenges you faced throughout your university, and then getting in and working daily now? These could be challenges as a First Nations person, challenges around that, cultural challenges, or just challenges in general working in the STEM career.
Well, I would say the main challenge for me into getting where I was now was finding the opportunities and making sure that, like, learning when opening days were for submissions. And because I had no idea, honestly, I had no idea where to find, whether the cadetships were opening, when the work placements were opening. So being able to have resources like at University of Wollongong, they have this centre called the Wollongong Indigenous Centre, and they offer lots of information regarding different opportunities, opening dates. Also, my careers advisor was a great help for that. And without any of those people, I would definitely not be here today. As in the workplace, honestly, I don't have any complaints from Wollongong City Council. That's a great place to work in my opinion and my experience so far. I suppose on a personal level, back when I was working at Arcadis and SMEC, that journey up into Sydney was a bit tedious each day. But now, since COVID, I know there's more leniencies in working from home. So maybe if I was to go through that internship program this day, I wouldn't have this to say about it.
Awesome. Thank you. And for you, Melanie, what were some of the challenges you faced throughout your time in your career so far?
Well, I suppose in terms of the work that that I do, a lot of it is, I guess, around creating change when it comes to and just facilitating education and that kind of thing about, you know, better ways to engage with First Nations people, helping people become more, you know, culturally aware and culturally competent and that kind of thing. And I guess the main challenge for me has been that, you know, not everyone wants to embrace that. Certainly the majority of people do, but not everyone, even when we think about something like the engineering profession, not everyone wants to deviate from tried and tested ways of doing things. So, you know, sometimes when people are maybe operating from that lower base of understanding about First Nations people and cultures, it can create resistance. So really being patient around that, that, you know, that's the key. But then I would say just more broadly, in terms of, you know, career challenges, but certainly in the space that I work in, knowing when to call time as well, when, you know, perhaps you feel like you aren't learning or growing in a particular role or a particular organization. And sometimes we don't know that until, you know, we sort of get there. We can't really predict that or put, you know, timeframes on how long we should stay at one place or the other. But I just think maybe tuning in to when you do need to go and apply your skills or expertise in a new setting, because that also contributes to our growth as people and as professionals as well. So figuring out that balance can be tricky sometimes about how to always keep learning and keep growing.
Yeah, definitely. I can talk to that a little bit as well. Yeah, going through, there's the engineering space, the STEM space in more broadly, it's constantly growing, constantly changing. You know, as those on the call that are, you know, in the fields and or those aspiring to get into this kind of role, you'll know that sorry, loud trucks. You'll know that, like, it is kind of difficult. There are ways that it has been done for a long time, but as it kind of grows, you need to kind of become adaptive. And I think that's a really good skill to start kind of instilling in yourself throughout university and throughout life, is to become a bit adaptive to all of these changes. There's, you know, an immense amount of new technology. You know, AI is the whole new talk at the moment with everything going on there. So the workplace is constantly changing. And one of the challenges to keeping on top of that and keeping up to date with it all. You know, it's just always out there looking into it. You know, even on LinkedIn, those that are on LinkedIn has excellent resources for trainings and all that stuff. And there's heaps of other ways to do it. Some other challenges for me throughout different times, there's always, I mean, not always for everyone, but there is that element of cultural load challenges. And you may feel that at certain times throughout your career. And you know, it could be difficult to navigate. You might feel lost and not know how to talk about it to your employers. But recognizing, you know, it's important as the employers to recognize cultural load and to not put so much burden on staff members and things like that as well. I think that was something, you know, in the past for me that was a bit of a challenge, and kind of navigating that. You know, the best way through it for myself was talking about it. Just having those yarns, sitting down, talking about what's on your plate. You know, we all have so much on our plate outside of work. Everything happens, everything evolves and changes. You know, there's always something going on. You're always busy. So, you know, it's about finding that balance. And, you know, balancing that between how much you can give from your culture and how much you can also get back from your company. So trying to find that balance and act's a bit of a challenge, but there's plenty of support out there to do that. So yeah, I encourage everyone, you know, that is struggling now to seek support and to reach out for anyone to find that. There's an amazing TED Talks on it about cultural load. There's many resources. So I encourage everyone to look into that if they feel that they need to. So again, to Brodie, I'll go to you first. before starting your job with Wollongong Council, before starting your career, even before Arcadis and SMEC, what's something you wish you knew now that you would have known back in the start? I guess you kind of talked to knowing about remote work, but what's some other things that you kind of wish you knew now?
What I wish I knew from the start.
Yeah.
I would say that I wish I knew I knew how to connect with country better. That would probably be my only thing that I would wish if I was to turn back the time. I have a connection with country through my family members and the things that we go out and fishing with my dad and etc. But I'm not too savvy of culture in the way of like the wider community. I'm a part of the Wollongong Indigenous Centre, Wollongonga Indigenous Centre here at UOW, and I like to get involved with the Indigenous peer group at Wollongong City Council, which is only just a newly formed group. But I'm not sure, like, yeah, I guess it's not the greatest thing to have to say, but I wish I was more connected with country and culture.
Yeah, no worries. And Melanie, for you, what would you wish you knew before you started your career?
I mean, in terms of where I've landed, it probably goes back to some of my earlier comments about not really understanding the vast scope of what I could be contributing to by joining the engineering profession, I suppose. And in some ways, I wonder, I mean, I think programs have come a long way since I was a young person, and that's definitely showing my age when you drop those sort of comments. But yeah, I think a lot of the programs that both you and Brodie are referring to, Josh, have come a long way. That, you know, they're sort of programs that weren't around when I was a young person at university. And it's clear, even from hearing you both speak today, the absolute benefit that those kind of programs have, which is just so heartwarming to hear. I guess in some ways I still put a challenge out that sometimes I wonder whether STEM maybe does have a branding issue at times when it comes to First Nations people. And you know, particularly new recruits and young people or people from more diverse backgrounds more broadly. So yeah, I think when we start to look at well, what does that look like and how can that change? And even Brodie, to your comments about how can it actually help people become more connected to country? I think they're the kinds of things we need to be talking about to people, and that might already be happening. But I'd love to see that get stronger and stronger in terms of attracting people to STEM.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I guess for myself as well, something that I wish I knew, I guess in the electrical field, going through university, electrical engineering and mechanical engineering are always seen as the harder ones to go through. And I kind of wish back then, knowing working in the field is not as hard as uni makes it seem. You know, you can, if you push through it and you've got through the uni degree, you can definitely get through the career. Of course, there's challenges and problems in the workplace that you solve throughout the projects. You know, the general problems and things that you get to solve. And that's all the exciting things about being an engineer, is solving all those problems. But knowing that it's not as scary as what university may make it seem when you first start off, it's actually quite incredible. I mean, just speaking on exactly where I am now, this is where engineering has taken me today to be here. So knowing that it can take you anywhere as well, knowing that your choice that you make in your earlier career, the first job you get as an undergrad or a grad, that doesn't define where you're going to end up to be. You can literally be anywhere doing any sort of role. and doing incredible things in any sort of capacity. So I guess it'd be great if I knew that a bit more back then. I was always a little worried of like, oh no, this was really hard. And now I'm going to be always finding it really hard as I got a job and things like that. But that wasn't the case at all. So yeah, in hindsight, that's one of the greatest things to look back on. So I'll start off with Melanie for this one. Give Brodie a little bit of a break. I've been a bit mean to starting off with him. So what can the engineering industry do? I know you spoke to it a little bit already, but what can the engineering industry do to attract more First Nations youth and also build a better representation for First Nations engineers?
Yeah. So so I think it comes back to and this is no criticism of perhaps what is already happening. You know, obviously there's these amazing programs, but yeah, that communication about the diversity of opportunities people have within something like engineering. So I think for some people, you know, and you know, First Nations kids or whatever, there'll always be the attraction of working on really high profile infrastructure solutions, or you know, the humans side of engineering, and you know, designing different things for humans, because you know but I do think a real draw card for some First Nations people is how engineering can contribute to our obligations that we have around caring for country, right? So you know, old solutions to new problems are a thing of the past. That's not where it's at anymore. And I think we're realizing, you know, even at a global level, that and the engineering profession is now supporting solutions that are directly linked to healthy country. Healthy country is the foundation of a lot of this, you know, renewable energy, nature-based solution, all things that benefit from our connection to the land as people, and help us fulfill our obligations as First Nations people. So I think that would resonate with some First Nations people, and it's not necessary that you have to be an expert in country, but that it's a community that you can be part of by even joining something like engineering is supporting healthy country, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's good to see that we are starting to have that shift around the engineering world into protecting country and working with country. How can we make an incredible design without losing the awesome elements of our lands?
Yeah.
Brodie, so same question, over to you.
Okay. The question was about how do we attract more First Nations, Indigenous?
Sorry, I should have repeated the question. So what can the engineering industry do to attract more First Nations youth and to build a better representation of First Nations engineers?
I think if you're trying to target First Nations individually, that you need to reach out to them more specifically. And what I mean by that is, in my experience, I only became aware of certain Indigenous programs and supports because someone came and physically told me. I didn't see it on the internet anywhere. I didn't see posters on the wall. It was when my careers advisor came and spoke to me. It was when my Clontarf advisor spoke to me, who was another person at my high school. It was when people at Wollongongo came and spoke to me. I think especially in high schools, there are Indigenous centres now where like kids often hang out at lunchtime or recess time. And if you would like to get more Indigenous youth specifically interested in engineering, then that's the places that you need to go and advertise your programs.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And going,
I know that most careers advisors, maybe they have a lot of students to manage, and sometimes something so small or something so personal could get pushed over or pushed to the side when maybe something that's more far-reaching is worth their time.
Yeah, and I guess maybe broaden the question or to focus it a little more to corporate employment to these companies. Like, what is something that you would both like to see in a workplace, in your workplace, but that maybe your workplace or in general that your workplace does well already, that would be great for other workplaces to do for their First Nations employees?
All First Nations employees. I think what Wollongong Council has done very recently is very good, which is starting up the Indigenous peer group program. And I think that would be a benefit in many companies and like corporate jobs, because you're getting together with all of the other Indigenous people who have life lessons about country and from their families' experiences of country. And you could allocate some time each week to spend in this group, going out and into nature, into country, and having a look at, we'll say where I am, for example, there's a spot called Mount Kira, which is an important heritage location. So we're planning as a group to go up there with an elder who lives nearby and just learn about culture. And I think that is a good attractor for Indigenous people who maybe do want to learn more about country and also want to be engineers. It's like a win-win.
100% agree. That sounds like an awesome program that your organization's already doing.
Well, yeah, I guess because without it, it doesn't really happen. And I know my family who is Indigenous, but I don't know any elders outside of my family to go and learn from. But through this program, I'm becoming more culturally enriched.
Yeah, that's awesome to know that you're able to gain that from your workplace. Melanie, what about from your experience, or something that you think should be done?
Yeah, that's awesome, Brody, by the way. And I'd probably just echo Brody's comments about creating a community within the workplace and of First Nations people. And that can be a bit, you know, chicken and egg sometimes, in terms of, oh, well, we need a population of First Nations people in our organisation in the first place. But I guess that, you know, particularly as that starts to build, being quite deliberate about making sure that those people have a community of, you know, other First Nations professionals or people, you know, even, you know, through some of these, like, you know, sort of this external stuff to the organisation that Brody's doing, that, yeah, people are being nourished from that perspective, because I think that as First Nations professionals, we are navigating different things, and we are expected to contribute in different ways. And so that almost comes with its own separate stream of professional development, from a cultural professional development almost, that I think workplaces have a role in helping to facilitate, you know.
Yeah, it's and that's something that's, you know, I'm proud to say for EWB, Engineers Without Borders, that we have some things embedded in policy around First Nations employees, around recognizing that study leave doesn't always mean, you know, one of the key things, and, you know, the things that I love the most, I guess, in that policy there is the study leave doesn't mean university or TAFE studies. It's about our culture, right? Traditionally, we didn't learn through those things. It was about yarning with elders and getting that knowledge passed down, and recognizing that those sessions count as study leave, and recognizing that all of that is part of what the organization offers. And that's something that could be pretty incredible for other organizations to start doing as well, is giving more freedom, I guess, or adjusting existing policies to suit you know, our cultural ways, and adapting those things. You know, it comes back to being adaptive, and having those companies allowing those changes, which is, yeah, it's pretty incredible that, you know, Engineers Without Borders, we're doing that, but, you know, it'd be great to see some other organizations doing that as well. So now I want to talk a bit more about First Nations kids specifically, and think of our audience now to them specifically. So as a mentor, as, you know, both of you today are role models of the community, you know, coming and chatting today, and you know, there's going to be people looking up to you, and there are people looking up to you in the roles that you've done and your careers and everything. And, you know, talking it from that kind of lens of what advice would you give to any First Nations kids thinking of a career in STEM, or maybe they're not thinking about it, but what's something that that switched it for you that you might be able to share some advice on that could help them be encouraged to follow a STEM career? So Melanie, would you like to start off with this one?
Sure. Yeah, I'd probably just say don't be fooled into thinking it's somewhere you don't belong. Every technical discipline across the globe is constantly evolving to be more inclusive. And the other thing I would say to young people is you are growing up in environments and contexts that position you to be subject matter experts in how all of that applies to engineering or STEM or whatever. So we need that experience of what it's like being a young person, in a lot of ways growing up in a new world, in a different world than what a lot of us grew up in. And we need that. We need that alone to be bringing those insights into these professions, because it will only keep, sort of making it better. So that's what I would say is, don't be fooled into thinking it's somewhere you don't belong. I think we've covered a lot today in the discussion about a diversity of opportunities within STEM, and that some of that perhaps isn't well understood when you're on the outside. So yeah, I guess sort of lean in and understand your value. Even as a young person, you already have knowledge that a lot of people in the profession don't have. So yeah, come and join us.
Of course, everyone's welcome. The more the merrier. Brody, what's some advice that you would be able to give for some First Nations kids?
Well, I would just echo Melanie's point and say when she said lean in, that was one of the quotes that was in my head to sort of flip the switch in changing my mentality on what I am capable of or what I could achieve in my life. It was just understanding that someone has to do the job of the adults one day, and that it could be anyone. So just lean in and say yes to all of the opportunities, even if you think that, I don't know how to do this. Well, there's lots of tools out there to learn how to do things. So I would say, if I was just talk to a young version of myself, I would say the exact same things. I would say, lean in, take all of the opportunities that you can get. Even if you don't think that you're interested straight away, there's something that you could learn from it, even if it's learning that it's not something you want to do, and putting in that effort when you're young, even if it's towards something that you eventually find you're not interested in, is good, because it shows to future employees and it shows to all the people around you that you have a drive and commitment.
Yeah,
and that's a very attractive thing, especially when you're looking for future employment.
Yeah, 100% agree with those statements, and I think another thing that I've with this, the excellent work I've been able to do in this kind of field is recognizing that working in a corporate firm doesn't mean working off country. You may always be worried. I know for myself and for Brody, we did do the travel up to Sydney, and we were off our country doing that, but we were, that's something, if you're comfortable to do, you can do, but it doesn't have to be how you do it. One of the good things, if any, out of the COVID is the whole remote working and the flexibility in that. So recognizing that you can get your degrees and get your education and get your career without leaving country. And these opportunities, so you don't have to lose connection or feel that you miss home because you don't have to leave it. And that's something important as well. That if you are worried about that, I know it can be tough. And I've talked to numerous people that have, had to leave country for their careers and stuff like that. And it is tough. And that's something to recognize, that leaving home and leaving countries is a tough thing, but also recognizing that you don't have to always. And even if you do, you can always come back. I'm here today. We can always come back. We can always, embed ourselves in country and culture. And I dare say we'll always be welcomed in open arms back to family and community. So, don't let that be something that holds you back either. Don't let anything hold you back. Don't. One of the other key things that I've always seen is, which it might sound a bit funny, but fear of success, for fear of doing well in the community. You might be afraid to be the pillar or shine too bright from other people of the attention and whatnot, but don't have that fear. Recognize that if you are that one person in your community that steps up and takes the first foot forward in this, you will be you will be a pillar and a role model within your community. But that light that you shine on everyone else, that's going to allow others to speak up that wouldn't have had the courage to do so beforehand, and allow them to pursue their dreams and careers. So don't be afraid of being successful. Don't be afraid of going off and doing all of the wonderful things that we're all capable of doing. There's absolutely nothing that we wouldn't be able to achieve. So don't ever be afraid of that. And on the back of that, don't ever be afraid to fail. The amount of times we fail is the amount of times we learn. And it's not easy. I'll openly say that my university was a bit of a struggle. There's a couple of fails in there and some struggles on the way. A few times I fell down, but always be able to get back up. So, and that's kind of a key message to send out to everyone as well. Like, the failures you learn from, and that's how you can always keep building forwards. You probably hear that corny line all the time, but it's true. And for any other any kids that this has reached today, or for anyone that wants to share this with any young ones that they have, tell them that. Tell them, don't be afraid to succeed and don't be afraid to fail. Be the shining pillar for your community. And with those, beautiful closing remarks to the community, we'd like to start to do a bit of a wrap up now. So thank you, Melanie and Brodie, for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure being able to have this chance to chat with you both and go through some of these questions that our audience has sent in for us. And yeah, it's been incredible. I love talking about this stuff. And if we weren't bound to an hour, I feel we could be here all day. Hopefully next time if we all meet up for a yarn, we can all be together somewhere beautiful, like I am.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you again for joining. And I'd like to say thank you to all of our audience members as well, that have been listening in today and hopefully learning a few things from what we've been able to say. I'd like to now, yep, cool. I'd like to now start talking on some resources that we here at Engineers Without Borders have for the community. So there will be links shared in the coming slides and in chat. Don't worry, these will also be emailed to you after this event. So, look out for that. But I'd like to talk to our First Nations resources. So we have some videos and a flyer and a handout that you'll be able to access post this session, as well as visiting our webpage. We have updated information around programs, scholarships, camps, and all sorts of other exciting opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students from a range of age groups. So primary school, secondary school, and university opportunities there. I'd like to now go on to talking a bit more about an exciting opportunity that I kind of alluded to at the start to plant a little bit of a seed. One of our new programs for Engineers Without Borders is our Indigenous-led youth outreach. As you can see on screen, it's an exciting and informative stage. And the program, it does need support. So that's kind of where I'm reaching out here for anyone that's, dialed in that would like to support the program. We're able to put a poll in chat. And you'll be able to fill out the poll to let us know that we want to be more touch about this, and we can reach out and contact you further for more information. But this program, incredible. I'm going to do a bit of a run through what it is because it's something that I'm really passionate and excited about. So it's going to be, to my understanding, one of its first of its kind of a completely Indigenous-led youth outreach. We are partnered with Engineers Australia, and in particular the Indigenous Engineering Group within that. And we're developing a program that is delivered on country. So we are not going to be based in major cities flying people in, like other programs have been. We're making this program about being on country. Of course, we'll be in major cities for countries that are there, but looking forward, it's all about being on country, and really reaching out the groups of youth that may not necessarily get the same opportunities that come up living in a metro area. We have exciting pilots planned this year. We have one coming up in Cape York, and we'll be delivering that with Llama Llama up there. So we'll be working on country. So stay connected with us, and we could be coming to your country in the future. So always look out for this program. And yeah, it's all I can say is incredible. I mean, I'm working on it daily, and I love it. I've loved being able to move from the technical aspect to now working on and trying to encourage and build up the skills for First Nations youth to get into the career. Yeah, so trying to think what else I can say. There's so much I can say about it. What else do we want to share? But I guess the main message of all of this is please support. We are, EWB is still a charity organization, and please support us in this endeavor. We are seeking funding for the IEG program, as mentioned just previously, and we're still seeking funding for a lot of our First Nations work and community works. So, please donate if you can. If you would like to donate and make it specific to the IEG program, just in your donation, mention something around that. And we can ensure those funds go directly to that program. Otherwise, in general, if you'd like to donate and support Engineers Without Borders in all of the wonderful work we're doing, and yeah, it's incredible. So thank you all again. All I can just say, thank you so much for the support of joining us all here today, listening in to our Q&A, as well as providing those questions for us. So thank you all again. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me, Josh.
No worries. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thanks for having us, Josh.
An absolute pleasure to be able to yarn with you both about all of these things. Yeah. So I guess thank you, everyone. Yeah. Is there any other final comments from you two closing off that you'd like to share?
I suppose bouncing off of what you said in your closing remarks, Josh, about fear of failure. One thing that was good for me to learn when I was young is that you don't really have anything to lose, especially when I was in high school. I felt like there was like a be all and end all of the things I was deciding, because there was a lot of pressure and build up of, sorry, it's just banging, making some noise. There was a lot of pressure of what path your life's going to go on. But in hindsight, I feel like I could have taken any direction I wanted and done a complete 180. And I wouldn't have been at any disadvantage. I would have actually been more experienced had I taken opportunities earlier and failed. Yeah. So just parking on from what you said, Josh, don't be afraid to fail.
100%.
You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. Sorry, just as one final thing for everyone, after this meeting closes, there'll also be a survey to fill out. Can everyone please complete the survey when the webinar ends? All your feedback and responses really mean a lot to us, and it helps us better everything we're able to do. We love all the support you guys are giving us, so thank you all again. Yeah, so anyway, we can close it off. Thank you all, and we'll reach out next time with another series in the future. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. See ya.